The type of bread I will be talking about is live decorative bread. The four main ingredients of a bread dough are flour, water, salt, and yeast. Each of these ingredients play a special role in the whole process of bread baking. First, let's talk about flour. Spring wheat preferred for a highly machined process, which is pan bread, and is higher in protein. There are additives to flour such as enrichment, oxidizers, bleaching
Water
agents, etc.
hydrates the flour's component.
Flour is always
Links
100%
every
in
component together, increases all the chemical and physical reactions, regulates consistency and temperature. Starches from the flour absorb the water on the outside of the particle. Proteins can absorb up to 200% of their weight in water.
Water helps with sugar hydration and allows more fermentation to happen. More water equals more activity equals less yeast. Less water and low activity equals more yeast. Water plus protein form the gluten, which creates structure. Extensibility and elasticity are main physical properties of gluten. Quantity of water affects the dough consistency. Temperature of water affects the final dough temp. Yeast creates gas, alcohol, and acidity, which becomes energy, which is friction from the heat. The most common used yeast
Now
is
let's talk
yeast.
about salt.
Salt adds flavor. It regulates yeast activity. Fermentation happens at a more consistent rate. It creates a more elastic, less extensible dough. It helps fix the water to flour components. Less sticky and easier to work with. It slows down chemical reactions, oxidation, and is 2% of the flour.
Discuss the items of bread. Let's discuss the steps in making a decorative dough. The ingredients for this bread is 1,560 grams of bread flour,
and roll the ends
1,240 grams of whole wheat flour,
of the 3-inch roll,
560 grams of light rye flour,
For the
280
big
grams
leaf,
of dark
you
buckwheat
take out the
flour,
dough from the fridge
2,000 grams of ice cold
and
water,
you use your X-Acto knife.
56 grams of salt, 40
After you
grams
cut
of
it out,
instant
you
yeast,
flatten and press
and
the edges
112 grams
to
of
make
soft
it
butter.
look realistic.
After scaling out all of your
To make
ingredients,
your small leaves,
you first
take
add
your
the water
3-inch
to the
cookie cutter.
mixer, then
You
the
make
dryer,
the circles,
and you
and
add
then you
yeast,
cut
and then
3
you
leaves
add
out
the
of
butter
that
on
circle.
top. You start mixing on
After
first
you
speed.
finish cutting the leaves
After
out,
it's all incorporated, you take
you
your
place
piece
them
out
at the
and cut it
connection
into a
of the
dairy
braid.
skin baguette. Be
remember
able
to
to
always
make the
keep the
baguette
dough
skinny
covered.
without breaking it.
You
If you
make sure
break
you
it, then the
have
dough
enough
isn't
mini
ready.
rolls for the grapes,
If it stays
and
put,
you place them on
then
the
it's ready to
side
come
of
out
the
the
bottom.
mixer. Once you
After
take it
you
out the
finish
mixer,
mixing,
you must cover
you
it
scale
because it will
out
dry out.
2,300 grams of the dough. You push it down on the table and mill it into a ball. You place it with the seam down and you keep it covered. Then you divide 3 660 gram pieces and you pre-shape them like a baguette. After that, you divide 3 100 gram pieces and you shape them like a mini baguette. Then you divide the leftover dough in half. You use the sheeter to flatten to 2 millimeters. Then you put on a half sheet pan, cover and refrigerate. Then you take the other half, you flatten the dough and make really thin baguettes. Then you take your bench scraper and chop into little tiny pieces to make the grapes. Now let's focus on the braids. You take your mini baguettes and you roll them really long and then you let them rest. If the dough resists on you, you take it and you cover it back up and you let it relax so that it's easier to roll out. Now for the main body, you put it in the sheeter. You go all the way down 5 increments at a time, shaped like an oval. To check if it's the right size, you place a piece of parchment over the top and it should be 4-inch spaces on all 4 sides. After you finish sheeting it, place on a sheet pan with parchment paper. Remember, always keep the dough covered. For the braids that go around the main body, you start them in the middle using the mini baguettes. When you finish, you wrap the braid around the main body and stick ends on top of the disc.
After you finish, remember to cover the dough back up.
Then you take your wine bottle, making sure that it's covered in parchment and sprayed with pan spray, and you place it on the left side of the disc. But make sure it's enough room on the side for your grapes. You don't want it directly in the middle.
Now you take your 100-gram mini baguettes and you roll them with the seam up. Make sure they're the same length and same thickness. After you finish rolling them, you go down 3 inches and roll the ends really thin. On top of the 3-inch roll, make pointier for the wheats. For the big leaf, you take out the dough from the fridge and you use your X-Acto knife to cut out with the stencil. After you cut it out, you flatten and press the edges to make it look realistic. To make your small leaves, you take your 3-inch cookie cutter, you make the circles, and then you cut 3 leaves out of that circle. After you finish cutting the leaves out, you place them at the connection of the braid. Remember to always keep the dough covered. You make sure you have enough mini rolls for the grapes and you place them on the side of the bottle.
But always keep the dough covered. For the braid, you start braid from the center to make things easier. After you finish the braid, you circle the braid around the main body and you stick the ends on top of the disc. For the mini braids, you take your 100-gram mini baguettes and make sure they're the same thickness with the seam up. The same idea as rolling a baguette. You go down each one 3 inches and start rolling the ends really thin. On top of the 3-inch roll, you make the top pointier. For the big leaf, you take your dough out the refrigerator and you use your X-Acto knife to cut out the stencil. You remove it from the leftover dough and flatten and press the edges to make it look realistic. And then you roll the stem. For the small leaves, you take your 3-inch cookie cutter and make circles. And from the circles, you make 3 leaves. Then you take the small leaves and you put them at the connection of the braid. Then you get your wine bottle, making sure that it's covered with parchment and pan spray, and you place the bottom of the bottle at 6 o'clock and then you press down. Now you take your mini baguettes that you roll with the pointy end and line them up unevenly. And then you braid the ends. You pick up the braid and put on the neck of the bottle. Then you place the wreaths on the braid around the main body piece. Remember to always keep your dough covered. Now for your roses. You put them on the sheeter and sheet them 1 millimeter thick. Then you use your 2-inch cookie cutter and cut 7 circles. Then you roll your scraps from the circles really thin to make vines for the roses. For your rose, you take 1 circle and you roll from north to south, the roll of steam. Then you place it evenly on top of another circle. It adds crispiness and coloration of crust. You start opening the petals as you go. Changes during baking. Then you pinch the bottom, CO2 production, cut off the excess dough, CO2 and place inside of the connection roll. And the starch gelatinizes. After that, enzymes are also inactivated on the side of the bottle. But before you bake, you should check. After you make sure all of the grapes are placed evenly, you take the big leaf and set it on top of the grapes of the oven. After this, you let it proof for 20 minutes. Moisture is released and condensed. After the proofing time, pressure equalizes. You sift the white rye flour around. After baking, you should check the good air circulation and make it even. Cause mold. After that, you take your X-Acto knife